Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another video and to the second episode of Ty's Cars Book Club. Temporarily renamed to Rashid's Cars Book Club for this episode because I'm hosting. Now if you don't know who I am, I'm Rashid Reviews. I'm a good friend of Ty's and I've collaborated with him several times before. Every time we do a collab, I feel the need to introduce myself just in case somebody's watching and doesn't know who I am. Anyway, this video is for the second round of Ty's guest host week. It's basically a thing where Ty gathers up a bunch of different creators and they all try to make episodes of series on his channel. Last time I did an episode of Weird Products, but this time I opted for a relatively new series, Ty's Cars Book Club, for exactly one reason. This book. This is the Cars 5-Minute Racing Stories collection, a book published in 2017. As the name suggests, this is a collection of a bunch of different stories from around the Cars franchise, meant to be read aloud in 5 minutes or less. Taking a look at the cover, we have some illustrations of some Cars characters like Lightning McQueen, Cruz Ramirez, Jackson Storm, and Rick and Cal over there. Moving on to the spine, you can see 5-minute racing stories written out there with an illustration of Cruz up top. And on the back, we've got a nice little illustration of a scene from the racing center from Cars 3. A lot of Cars 3 theming on the cover here, which makes sense considering Cars 3 was a new movie when this book came out. But kinda ironic considering that there's only one Cars 3 story in this collection, but we'll get to that. As you can see, the description here reads out, "Get ready to race. Head to the racetrack with Lightning McQueen and his friends in this collection featuring 12 racing stories. Each story in this book is meant to be read aloud in just 5 minutes, making them a perfect fit for bedtime, story time, or anytime." So yeah, there are 12 stories in this collection, and as you're going to see, this book is kinda weird. I was actually planning to cover this book on my own channel, but that didn't quite work out, so today I'm getting a second shot at introducing you to probably one of the weirdest Cars books I've ever seen. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at this book. Got a nice little illustration of McQueen up there, and you can see the contents of the books. I believe Pit Crew to the Rescue all the way up to Rammin' Slammin' Relay is the Cars in One story. So we've got 6 Cars in One stories, so that's half of them. Then from Rematch up to Racing for Good are the Cars 2 stories. Then you've got the lone Cars 3 story over here, which we'll get to in a minute. The first story is Pit Crew to the Rescue. It had been an exciting afternoon in Radiator Springs. Lightning McQueen was on TV talking about the big Piston Cup tiebreaker race. "Do you think he can beat Chick Hicks?" Sally asked. "Lightning can beat anybody," said Mater excitedly. "We should head on out there to cheer him on. He needs us," Doc said. "Ooh-wee, our road trip," Mater shouted. So yeah, this takes place during the tiebreaker in the first Cars movie, so that's pretty interesting. The road to California was long. To keep from getting tired, the cars stopped at several rest stops. "Hey, look," Mater called out as he peered over the edge of a cliff. "That town is just like Radiator Springs." "There's only one Radiator Springs," Doc said, "but I do think you found us a shortcut." Mater beamed. Then he realized that Guido was missing. Worried, Mater went to look for the little forklift. Mater found Guido at the end of the line of cars. It was hot, and little Guido had fallen way behind. A frantic Luigi begged Mater, "Please help Guido." Doing a tight U-turn, Mater spun around and hooked the weary forklift onto his tow cable. Mater was going to give Guido a lift to California. "I hope you don't mind looking at where we've been instead of where we're going," Mater said. That's a nice little line there. Call back to the first movie. Finally, the Radiator Springs gang arrived at the Los Angeles International Speedway. It was almost race time. Sarge took command. "Flo, oil stand over here. Guido, tires and tools right there." "Beat stop," Guido shouted. Shaking with excitement, he went to work. Ramon was itching to do some painting. Doc had a suggestion. Try snazing up this pit. We need to show off our star car. Where is Lightning? Mater wondered. Come on, Mater, Doc said. Let's find the kid. He's right there, guys. Okay, whatever. There were so many cars around that Doc and Mater had trouble spotting Lightning. There he is, Mater shouted. Wait. What? What is he? Lightning, what are you doing back there? He was just at the racetrack. He was just at the racetrack last page, and now he's suddenly in his trailer again. Okay, whatever. Doc turned to look, but Lightning was already gone. Determined to find his friend, Mater began a search of his own. Lightning McQueen, Mater shouted. Where you at, buddy? Just then, Mater spotted the tent for Rusty's, Lightning's racing sponsor. Maybe his friend was in there. Inside, Mater found himself surrounded by rusty cars. Hey, you're Lightning's pal Tom Mater, said an old man. How about a free sample, Mater? Said a grinning blue car. It will take some of that rust off your bumper. And then we get a probably my favorite line from this book. Mater says, Rust? On me? Where? That's good, that's funny. Suddenly, Flo rushed in and took Mater away. Come back soon, the rusty cars called. This is a very wholesome interaction. We don't really see Mater, Rusty, and Dusty interact all that much in the franchise. I think they do appear together after the final race in the first movie, but this gives us a little bit more of that, and it's cool to see, honestly. It's pretty wholesome. Also, Fred over here, if you didn't notice. Mater and Flo went in search for decorations for Lightning Pit area. They found a truck that was selling lots of cool stuff. Mater picked out some snazzy antenna balls. Oh, I like those, Flo said, and then added some yellow banners that matched Lightning's team colors. Looks like we're going to have a ball today, said Mater with a grin. But Good one, Mater, said Flo, laughing. Can you tell I can't do a Flo voice? Doc was checking out the other crews when he heard Chick Hicks say, I'm winning this time, no matter what I have to do. I'm going to force the king and that smart-alecky rookie off the track. The cup is mine, boy. Some foreshadowing to later events. Doc knew he had to warn Lightning that Chick was up to his usual dirty tricks. How does he know that? Doc doesn't know who Chick is. He just met Lightning like a few days ago. Okay, whatever. But where was Lightning? Doc found Mater and told him about Chick's plan. Gotta warn Lightning, Mater yelled. I think I saw Mac over there, Doc said. Got to get closer. If we find Mac, we'll find Lightning. Again, how do you know who Mac is, Doc? This is during the first movie. Also, you were just near Mac in this page. So, you know, whatever. I'm poking a lot of holes in the story. It's fine. This area is for press only, said a tough-looking SUV guard. It looked like Doc wasn't going to get to Lightning in time. Sorry to let you down, kid, he said quietly. Mater didn't like seeing Doc look so sad and defeated. Here, Doc, this is for you, he said, tossing one of the antenna balls. It has Lightning's number on it, so you won't forget we're part of his team. Doc grinned. You're right, Mater. We came here to help our friend, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Doc looks so happy in this illustration. Mater spun around and let out a holler. Whoa, wait, here we come, Lightning, he yelled. Let's go to the pit, said Doc, and tell Ramon I need a special paint job. Alright, so this final page. As he made a turn around the track, Lightning McQueen saw his Radiator Springs in the pit crew area. They had come all the way to California to cheer him on. Hey kid, keep an eye on Hicks, Doc said over his radio headset. He's up to no good. Lightning wasn't worried. He knew that Doc and Mater and all his friends were looking out for him. He was also confused because Doc shouldn't know about Chick yet. Sorry, I'm still hung up on that. I'll move on. Newly energized, Lightning gunned his motor and took off down the racetrack. Ka-chow. So that was a nice little story. Some things don't make sense in the continuity, but it's pretty cool. I like stories that give more detail into specific events in the movies, and yeah, this is a pretty good example of that. Except there's something up with this story. What if I told you that this entire story was completely rewritten? That's right. The original version of this story was called Radiator Springs Road Trip. And all the dialogue and all the narration was completely different. This is a completely rewritten version of the original. And even the illustrations, some have been edited. For example, this one with Chick used to take up 2 pages. Now it only takes up 1 with a white background. So, yeah. Dialogue and narration has been rewritten, and illustrations have been edited. Everything is completely different. Reading this is not like reading the original. And they did that for every single story in this collection. Now, granted, some have more edits than others, but they were all edited in some way. Now, I'm assuming this was done to keep the stories a bit shorter. The whole point of this collection is to have 12 stories that you could read in 5 minutes. So editing the stories to make them a bit shorter made sense, but they've completely rewritten everything. And it's kind of crazy, honestly. You're gonna see a consistent theme throughout the book here, is that there are a lot of edits and rewrites happening over here, and I just find that so fascinating. Just seeing all these edited versions of these very old stories. I don't know, I just find it kind of interesting. Anyway, moving on to the second story here, we've got Revved Up in Radiator Springs. Okay, so this is after the final race of the first movie, maybe during the epilogue. You can also tell by McQueen being in his Radiator Springs paint job. Anyway, this story is actually 2 separate stories combined. There were 2 books adapting the story of the Cars game Cars Mater National Championship. A Day at the Races, which focuses on introducing Autobahn Fastenbottom, and Night Vision, which was Goodman's introduction. And I just find that so fascinating. Again, they combine 2 separate stories into one here. So I believe we're currently in the Otto story. Yeah, you see, here he is. And he got shots of Giovanni here and Koji with a different color scheme, which is actually his original look for the game before it got changed. So yeah, in the game, McQueen actually sends Otto to Lizzie's. And he says, get some souvenirs and stuff. But we never actually get to see him covered in bumper stickers like this. That never happens in the game. But it's cool that they did that. Okay, our next page takes us straight to the Goodman story. So it keeps cutting back like this, from story to story. Otto and McQueen had a lot more pages before he got covered in stickers like what we just saw. They were at flows, they had a lot more dialogue, but again, to keep these stories under 5 minutes, they cut out a significant amount of dialogue and illustrations from the 2 books, which is understandable, but again, I just find it really, really interesting. In the game and in the original book that this is rewriting, they were actually going out to investigate some weird sounds coming out of the caves in Ornament Valley. That was the setup to the game. In the game, Sarge was the one to tag along with McQueen and Mater, but in the story, it's Sheriff here. Now they seem to have entirely changed that plot point for the sake of runtime. Really, really interesting, the edits they choose to make. A lot of these book adaptations of movies, shows, or games use earlier drafts of said movie, show, or game. So, you know, there was a possibility that Sheriff was supposed to give McQueen the night vision goggles, but then they realized that Sarge would be more fitting of such a role since he owns a surplus hut. So they changed that in the game, but it managed to seep its way through the book adaptation. Now we cut back to the auto story, because the auto storybook featured the actual, race. Again, it's really interesting to see the edits they make to all these stories. The fact they combined two different stories and had them, cut from the first story to the second and then cut back to the first was really interesting. And yeah, moving on to the next story, it looks like we've got even more video game adaptations here. We've got Crash Course, which if you've seen Ty's Iceberg video, you might recognize this one. This one's pretty interesting. So this is Switcher over here. And as you might have noticed, he bears a striking resemblance to Jackson Storm from the third Cars movie. Switcher was actually seen in the very early concept art of the game. So this is another case of, the books being based off of early drafts in the movie. But yeah, the resemblance to Jackson Storm is uncanny. I've also got this car that's eerily similar to Cruz, but that's probably just a case of repainting Candace yellow, because Candace and Cruz look very similar. I feel like you kind of get the gist now. This is the first area in the game, the Radiator Springs Speedway, and this is just adapting that into a story. Next up is Dust Up in the Desert, which takes place in the Autovia section of Racerama. Interestingly enough, for every other story, they had Chicken his modified form, which he does not get until the final area of the game. But for this section, they gave him some little off-road gear. They win the Silver Tailfin Trophy again. Then the next story is in Santa Carburera, Fame in the Fast Lane. Of course, we get to introduce Candace. McQueen is in his Santa Carburera gear. The story involves Sally a lot, which is really nice. Since, of course, they couldn't put her in the game because of copyright issues, but they put her in the book adaptation, which I really like. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah, something I've noticed about this book is that I barely touched it, and a lot of the pages are falling apart. This wasn't really well glued together, but yeah. And then the last Racerama story here is Rammin' Slammin' Relay, which is the Motoropolis section of the game. So this has quite an interesting plot point. See, Ramon was developing some sort of glow-in-the-dark paint, and he said that, we need to glow, because you're going to be racing at night, it's probably going to come in handy. McQueen was like, the streets are going to be lit anyway. Race cars don't need headlights because the track's always lit. But, he didn't want to be rude, so he just accepted the glow-in-the-dark paint. You could see them glowing here, which actually ends up helping them. This wasn't a thing in the game. They added it for the story, and I find that really interesting. And that is it for the Cars 1 stories. You got a story at the beginning taking place during the first Cars movie, then a story during Mater National, then lots of stories around Racerama. So now we're entering the Cars 2 stories with Rematch. Francesco showing off all the fans and fan mail he gets. They were like, let's have a warm-up race. As you can see, Francesco absolutely fails because he doesn't have treaded tires. Then, when the race actually happened, you can see that Francesco gained treaded tires now. And it's a tie, so yeah, that happens. You get some more scenes of them talking and then agreeing for a rematch at Radiator Springs. Our next Cars 2 story here is the Neon Racer story, which a lot of you might be familiar with. Lightning McQueen was competing in the Transcontinental Race of Champions, T-Rock, a series of races hosted by his international racing friends. Shu Todoroki was hosting the first race in Japan. Buonasera, Lightning, said Francesco, an Italian racer. Francesco's looking forward to beating you in Tokyo. Then I'm afraid Francesco will be very disappointed, especially when he sees this. Lightning spun around and showed off a Sayonara Francesco bumper sticker. So this is a callback to the IndyCars too. Very nice. Just then, another car drove up. It was Carla Veloso, the racer from Brazil. You boys are so wrapped up in your own rivalry, you wouldn't even notice when I speed right past you, she said. Before Lightning or Francesco could respond, a white car cruised up to the racers. It was Shu's crew chief, Mark Matsuo. Welcome to Japan, he said. Shu is waiting for you at our racing headquarters. If you follow me, I'll show you the way. And you get a shot of Neon Shu over here. At his headquarters, Shu explained the race. We'll be racing at night. An 85-mile trip from Mount Fuji to Ginza. Shu motioned for several of his pit crew members to come forward. Since we'll be racing in the dark, we'll need special competition lighting. Shu darkened his race shop. The other racers gasped. The Japanese race car was glowing. The next evening, the racers, all lit up in bright neon, met at Base Camp 5, halfway up Mount Fuji. Welcome, racers, Shu said. When the flag drops, you may head straight down to the mountain. But for those who would like to join me in the ranks of Mount Fuji's most legendary racers, you may head up and sign the climber's book at the top of the mountain. That climb looks intense, a racer named Rip said. You can count me out. Straight to Ginza for me. Rip actually has a line in this book, which is pretty surprising, considering he never had a voice in the Cars franchise. He doesn't have a voice actor and he's never had any lines before, so this is quite interesting. Francesco agrees with Rip, said the Formula car. Francesco will win the race and then sign autographs. Gambat mina-san. Good luck, everyone. Then you get a really nice shot of all the neon racers here. This is probably our best look at some of these, considering most of them were released as diecasts. The flag dropped and the cars took off. Francesco and most of the other racers headed down the mountain, but Lightning wasn't about to take the easy way out. He wanted the honor of signing the climber's book. Lightning, Shu, Carla, Lewis Hamilton, and Vitaly Petrov drove up the rugged terrain, hugging the curves and skidding across patches of ice on their way to the top of the mountain. There it is, Shu called out when the racers reached the summit. The climber's book. Ka-chow! Lightning cried, signing the book. The other racers followed suit. As the racers turned to head back down to the mountain, Shu stopped them. I forgot to mention the other reward for reaching the peak of Mount Fuji. There is a road that leads straight down. Follow me. Now you're talking, yelled Lightning. Oh, yikes. Another case of this book not really being well put together. The 5 racers flew down in the mountain. Suddenly, their roads merged with another. The racers spotted the other cars just ahead of them. They had caught up with the racers who had taken the easier path. Let's show them what neon speed really looks like, yelled Lightning. The racers sped up, their lights glowing brightly. They looked like streaks of red, gold, green, blue, and white in the night. Soon, Lightning caught up to Francesco. Lightning McQueen, where did you come from? Asked Francesco in shock. Didn't think I'd make it easy on you, did you, Francesco? Lightning asked. Then, smiling and revving his engine, he took the lead. Finally, the racers entered Tokyo's colorful Ginza district. As the racers neared the finish line, Francesco edged out a lead. But with a burst of speed, Lightning cut in front of him. The two racers were so focused on passing each other, they didn't notice a car behind them. It was Carla Veloso. As promised, she slid by the two competitors and won the race. So yeah, Carla did end up passing them. Oh god. Oh, I'm just... This book is falling apart in my hands. On the winner's podium, Shu presented Carla with the Neon Racers Cup trophy. Neon racing was amazing. Thanks for hosting, Shu, said Lightning. Then he turned to this friends? Wow. A typo? Really, guys? Then he turned to this friends. Wow. So, where to next? Alright, so that was Neon Racers. This is an example of a more faithful to the original edit of the book. But yeah, there were a few things edited from the original. Moving on, our next story is Ice Racers. Oh god, you can see the... Okay, so... the page just fell out. Okay, that's awesome. So some of you might not even know this book existed, or this story existed rather. And that's because it was actually unreleased up until this collection. It never had any publications before this. This was its first publication. So if you think this collection of car stories couldn't get any weirder, they straight up have an unreleased story in it. It's just there. This is the main draw of this book to me. I wanted it for this story mainly because it was not anywhere online. Unfortunately, one of the few copies of the story is now torn apart. Whatever. Ice Racers. Welcome to Moscow, exclaimed Vitaly Petrov. The Russian racer was hosting the next leg of the Transcontinental Race of Champions, T-Rock. Moscow is amazing, Vitaly, said Lightning McQueen. If you think the city is beautiful, wait until you see the countryside, Vitaly said. We'll be ice racing there tomorrow. And then you get half of the next page. The next morning, the racers gathered in Vitaly's headquarters. A major snowstorm had passed through Moscow overnight. It was all anyone could talk about. Carlo Veloso, the racer from Brazil, which you can't see right now because half the page is gone, peered out a window. There's nearly a meter of snow on the ground, she said. Okay, let's go back to the actual book. There she is. There's Carla. That's in the city, added Lightning. The conditions will be even worse in the countryside. Don't worry, everyone. I will find a solution, said Vitaly. Vitaly quickly plotted a new race course through the city. We can race on the closed roads with our studded tires, he said. Oh god. Another page fell apart. Okay. This is, wow, this is not going well. Soon the racers were ready to go. They pulled up to the starting line at St. Battery's Cathedral. Is everyone ready to race? Vitaly called out. The racers answered by revving their engines. Let's put these tires to the test, Lightning yelled. The racers zoomed away, leaving a cloud of snow behind them. Soon the racers passed the historic Ball Joint Theater. The most beautiful ballet and opera performances in the world are held at the Ball Joint, Vitaly called back to his friends. Shu Todoroki, the Japanese racer, couldn't help smiling at the Russian racer. Not only does he make this look easy, he's giving us a tour at the same time. Just as the racers completed the first circle around the city, they encountered a roadblock. It's no problem, follow me, Vitaly shouted. The racers admired the graceful archways and the marble floors. But most of all, they appreciated the warmth. As the racers emerged from the station, they were caught off guard by a truck carrying huge bales of hay. The hay was covering the truck's eyes so he couldn't see the oncoming racers. Vitaly, Raoul Sarul, Lightning, Francesca Bernoulli, and Max Schnell quickly swerved around the truck, but Rip Klechkonsky couldn't make it. He turned too quickly and spun out. Vitaly looked back to make sure Rip was okay. I'm fine, Rip yelled out to his friends as he came to a stop on the side of the road. Don't worry, I'll catch up. So, this is Rip's second line in the franchise, I guess. When the racers reached the bank of the frozen Moscow River, Vitaly presented them with an option. Since there might be hazards on the road ahead, you might want to take a detour along the river. Some of the racers looked concerned. The choice is yours, Vitaly said. 5 of the racers decided to stick to the road, while the other 7 decided to take the river route. They would all meet up at the central Moscow Hyperdrome, where they would complete 3 laps before crossing the finish line. Vitaly gave the river racers a few words of advice. Stay close to the bank, where the ice is more solid. If you're going too fast, ease off the gas Let your studded tires do the work. The 7 racers on the river skimmed the ice with ease. Lightning couldn't believe how fast he was going. Couldn't believe it so much that his wheels turned red, despite them being blue. This must be what flying feels like, he said, relishing a blast of cold wind against his face. Back on the main road, Shu, Nigel Gearsley, Rip, Miguel Camino, and Carla were regretting their decision. They were at a standstill on a bridge as they waited for a snowplow to clear the road. Just then, they heard a voice from the river below. It was Vitaly. "Hello, comrades! Everything okay up there?" he called. The cars on the bridge sighed heavily. Down below, the river racers were facing problems of their own. Max's tire had cracked through the ice. "Keep going without me," said Max. "No, never leave a comrade behind. There's more to this race than winning," Vitaly said. Jeff Gorvet drove up. "Let me stay with Max. You need to guide the others down the river." Vitaly agreed and thanked Jeff. Then he called out to the others. "Stay the course, onward toward the Hyperdrome." Even though the river route was longer than the road course, the river racers were the first to arrive at the Hyperdrome. As they began their laps around the stadium, several racing fans showed up to cheer them on. Shu, Nigel, Miguel, Carla, and Rip zoomed onto the Hyperdrome and were shocked to discover that their fellow racers had already completed their first lap. "Looks like we have some catching up to do," said Shu, revving his engine and kicking up snow with his tires. "Yes, this race isn't over yet," exclaimed Miguel. The cars entered the final lap of the race. Francesco and Lightning were battling for the lead. Oh wait, it's the final lap, so I guess there was a time skip there. Lightning and Francesco Oh god. This is terrible. Lightning and Francesco hurtled toward the finish line. The other racers pushed to catch up. At the last second, Raoul slipped between the fierce competitors. With inches to spare, he edged out Lightning and Francesco for the win. Okay. Vitaly was proud to award Raoul Sarul the T-Rock Ice Racers Cup. "Congratulations," he shouted. "Merci, Vitaly," Raoul said happily. "This has been the best T-Rock race yet." "And the fun is just beginning," said Lightning. "Who wants to host next?" Okay, and that was the Ice Racer story. A lot of you probably didn't even know this existed, considering it was unreleased before this collection. But yeah, this collection would actually be featured a lot on the official Pixar Cars channel. They even did a video on the Neon Racer story, but they never did one for the Ice Racers one. Unfortunately, a lot of the pages fell off, but whatever. I've made a video of high quality scans of all these pages, so thankfully they're still preserved, and if you want to check that out, the link to that video will be in the description if Ty doesn't forget to add it. So yeah, our next Cars 2 story here is Rally to the Finish. Automatically, random old German car, favorite Cars character. We've got some nice unnamed racers back there. My favorite World Grand Prix racers. Orange Miguel, Green Miguel, and other racers I can't really make out. I believe our last Cars 2 story here, Racing for Good. Early one morning in Radiator Springs, Lightning McQueen was showing around a very special guest, fellow race car superstar Jeff Gorvet. "Thanks, Landon, for helping me put on this race for the Odometer Rollover Foundation." "My pleasure," said Lightning. "Hopefully we'll sell out the whole stadium tomorrow." "That would be awesome. Then we'd be able to provide lots of fuel and tune-ups for all the cars," said Jeff. The original version of the story had introductions of both characters, just like Lightning McQueen is a race car and Jeff Gorvet was a race car too. Honestly, I'd say this is a superior edit. It gives actual dialogue between characters instead of saying, "This is Lightning McQueen. This is Jeff Gorvet." Moving on, it explains the story through dialogue, which I prefer over just saying, "Oh, you know, they were doing this and that," and yeah. Lightning and Jeff headed to check out the track. "Doc would have been happy that we're holding the race at the speedway," Lightning said. I always wanted to host a charity race here. All of our international racing buddies are pretty excited about it too, said Jeff. Speaking of which, said Lightning, I think I hear one coming now. Man, if I had a nickel for every story in this collection that featured some sort of racetrack in Radius Springs, I'd have 3 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened thrice, right? It was Francesco Bernoulli, a race car from Italy. Ciao, Lightning! Ciao, Jeff! Exclaimed Francesco. Ciao to you, Francesco, Lightning said. Thanks for coming. Of course, Francesco is always happy to help you out with the slower cars. This is because Francesco is so generous and wonderful, the Italian racer said. Lightning smiled. You haven't changed one bit, Francesco. Lightning, Jeff, and Francesco drove inside the speedway. The other racers were already there to check out the track. Shu Todoroki, the humble yet fierce racer from Japan, rolled down the track toward his friends. Carla Veloso showed off her Latin moves with some quick turns of her wheels. And Nigel Gearsley, who isn't illustrated on this page, the suave and cool English gentle car, greeted Lightning and Jeff with a wink and a smile. Oh, never mind. There's Nigel. Well, mates, care to join us for a few warm-up laps? Nigel asked. Lightning was about to answer when a familiar green stock car pulled up. It was Chick Hicks! Lightning was immediately suspicious. Chick was always up to no good. A big race without me? Said Chick. I guess my invitation got lost in the mail. Well, Chick, we didn't really think this type of race was really your thing, said Jeff. I'm a Piston Cup champion. I belong in every race, Chick exclaimed. Both Jeff and Lightning sighed. They agreed to let Chick participate in the race, as long as he was on his best behavior. Chick chuckled as the other racers drove off. Sure, I'll be on my best behavior after I beat you all across the finish line. Soon the cars were ready to race. They drove up to the starting line. The flag dropped, and they were off. Francesco quickly took the lead. Let Francesco show you the meaning of true speed, he called out. Ease up, buddy. The race isn't about winning. It's about helping out Jeff's charity, Lightning said. We must still give our fans a good show, no? Said Francesco. Of course, Lightning replied. So Francesco will be charitable and let Lightning come in second place, Francesco said. But Chick was behind Lightning and Francesco and up to his usual dirty tricks. Get out of my way, he yelled as he bumped into Carla and made Shu spin out. Wow. Hey, what are you doing? Yelled Nigel. What does it look like I'm doing? I'm beating you, Chick laughed as he zoomed ahead toward Francesco. Oh, wow. Francesco didn't like that, apparently. In his rearview mirror, Francesco noticed a flash of green. Suddenly, Chick tried to ram Francesco. Francesco reacted quickly and swerved out of the way. Mamma mia, he yelled. Get out of here, you puzzle car. Chick didn't anticipate Francesco's quick maneuver and ended up crashing into some tires. Instant karma. Chick managed to catch up to Jeff and Lightning. The two friends winked at each other and slowed down, letting Chick pull out in front. Chick looked back. Who's the big winner here today? That's right, it's... Taking his eye off the track made Chick lose control. He went into a tailspin right over the finish line. Chick had won the charity race. And he's also like terribly damaged. See? Photographers, reporters, and fans all stared silently as Chick hobbled onto the winner's podium. Well, get on with it. Give me my prize money and trophy already, he yelled. The crowd burst into laughter. Oh boy, this is realization. Jeff pulled up next to Chick. Thanks for helping us raise money for the Automotor Rollover Foundation. Chick was stunned. Wait, I did what? Jeff laughed. That's right, Chick. You actually raced for a good cause. Oh my god. That's the name. Racing for good. That's why it's called Racing for Good, guys. Oh my god. As Chick rumbled to himself, Mia and Tia cruised up onto the stage with a big check. They handed it to Jeff. On behalf of the Autometer Rollover Foundation, I'd like to thank all the racers who participated in today's charity race, said Jeff. As Chick drove away, he heard someone call out to him. It was Lizzie. Chick, oh Chickie, I hear I have you to thank for my next tune-up. How about a kiss? I'm out of here, yelled Chick, and he sped away. And that was Racing for Good and our final Cars 2 story. Well, guys, we made it to the final story of this collection. The Cars 3 story, A New Racer, which I'm going to save you the reading of because this is just a retelling of Cars 3. As I said, this book was published in 2017, and not a lot of Cars 3 centric books were out. Really, the only ones were novelizations of the movie. In fact, I have one with me right now. It's a level 1 rating, Back on Track, and as you can see, it uses pretty much the same illustrations. So yeah, I can't really pin this down to one novelization, considering how much this book edits and rewrites the stories in the collection. So yeah, but at the end of the day, they're both telling the same story, being the plot of Cars 3. I think it's worth showing some of these illustrations though. I got this one from the Racing Center, which seems to be the same one featured on the back cover of the book. You get this really detailed illustration of Cruz here, probably one of my favorite illustrations in this entire collection. The lighting is beautiful, the expressions are on point, and yeah, it's just overall a really solid illustration. You get one page about Thunder Hollow, and then it immediately cuts to the talk with Cruz after the race. Last episode, Ty covered Marvel's Cars 2 comic novelization, and a big part of that video was just the amount of stuff that they had to cut for time. Here it's cranked up to 11 because this is just one measly story in a big collection of 12 others. Then you get this illustration that completely spoils the movie. Same with this one over here. And yeah, that was that story and the entirety of the Cars 5-minute racing stories collection. Boy, what a ride it was. In conclusion, this was a very fascinating read. What may appear to be just a regular Cars story collection at first turns out to be possibly the strangest one out there. With completely rewritten versions of old Cars stories featuring edited illustrations and different ways of conveying information to the reader, this book has it all, and the unreleased Ice Racer story is just the cherry on top. This book just keeps on giving, and I am all here for it. It's been fun diving down the rabbit hole of all the little changes made to the 12 featured stories in this collection. And while this book may be very weird, that's honestly what I like about it. I hope you learned something new today about the Cars 5-minute racing stories collection, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you to Ty for giving me this opportunity. I am extremely honored to host the second episode of Ty's Cars Book Club and to be able to talk about the strangest Cars book I've ever stumbled upon. Anyway guys, thank you all so much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye now.